Hello, everybody. I'm Karim Diaye. I'm working here at the ICM, and I'm very pleased to introduce you to the almost last session of the day on open data. And I want to make a very brief introduction to the speakers and their themes, raising these two versions of open. One is open bar, as mentioned today by Ségolène Aimé. And indeed, one aspect of the research going on here and discussed here is getting the data. So it's open bar in the sense that everyone can access the data. But the other flavor of open is open as the Australian Open, the open era of tennis, which, as you may know or not, comes from the fact that not everybody could participate to the Grand Slam tournaments. And until 1968, people were forbidden to participate to the tournament. And then at some point they said, well, everyone should be allowed to participate. And that's the way I want to put, to introduce the second speaker today, Jérôme Lecoq, because he will show you how now everybody can input the data, can provide data, not only access the data, but actually create them. And indeed, we will start with Stanley Durrleman, who is working here with a joint position as a co-leader of the team with Olivier Colliot in the Aramis team. But also, he will speak here today as the founding director of the ICM Centre for Neuroinformatics. The stage is yours. I'll start you.
Yeah, thank you, Karim. So, what is your strategy on big data? So what is your strategy on big data? Who can ask such a bold question? This question was asked back in 2016 by the ICM Board of Directors to the ICM Executive Director, who is sitting here in the room. And you can imagine how we feel embarrassed and puzzled by this question with the mandate of his board to find an answer to that question. And then at some point I was walking in the corridors and I took a group of people talking about this topic, and then I made two big mistakes. The first mistake is I joined the discussion and I was very enthusiastic. I said, yeah, it's a good opportunity, let's do that, let's do this, not that, and this way. And I speak very loudly, you know. And then at some point, all people just looking at me and say, hey, Stanley, you should be in charge. And then I make my second mistake. I didn't say no. I had absolutely no clue where I was heading to. I had a blank page, no clear letter of missions, nothing. And I will try to explain you what we have done in the last 2 to 3 years. But just before that, I think to understand what we have done, you need to understand a bit more what is the ICM. ICM is very classical, a neuroscience institute in its organization. So you have here 3 floors down you and 5 floors up. You have 700 persons total. And all these scientists are gathered in subdomains of neuroscience. And that's maybe very classical and very likely to be the scheme of your organization too. So we have molecular and cellular biology. Here the keywords, sequencing, genotyping, cellular imaging, histology. There is neurophysiology, where here the big keyword is electrical recordings in very various forms in humans, in animals, models, in cellular culture, intracranial, or whatsoever. We have cognitive neuroscientists. The keyword is neuroimaging, behavioral functional exploration, and we have clinical translational research with clinical investigation, health data, electronic health records, and so on and so forth. So I think that in mind, I think it's fantastic. It's fascinating to see that in one single building, we can cover nearly all areas of neuroscience. And then the question we ask is, okay, do we really take advantage of it? Do we fully take advantage of it? And at the time we were asked to define a strategy in big data, I mean, it was quite clear for me right away that data, in a large sense, and by the way, we rephrase big data by neuroinformatics. Neuroinformatics might be a good way to change the organization, to enable collaboration. Because if you are able to put the data at the center of the strategy of an institute like this, if you enable sharing things, sharing data, sharing expertise, sharing tools, then you will enable truly collaborative projects. You can have today, of course, scientists in the ICM having coffee together in the cafeteria or wherever in their offices and discussing about nice projects they can do together. But when they go back to their office, usually they just, wow, it's so cool idea, but it's so cumbersome to implement. Just because we work in our own environment, because data we generate, tools we use do not interoperate. And that's usually the way this project does not is not effective. So it was clear that the first objective we had with this neuroinformatics thing is a good way to break down the barriers between different domains and to enable effective collaborative projects, transversal projects. Then right after, it was clear that such a program should increase the reproducibility of our findings. I don't want to come back to this. We have a very insightful discussion right before about this topic. Also, I think the third objective was to value research on retrospective data. It's still very astonishing to me as a computer scientist to see how many of my colleagues think that data are out of date once the paper is published. Okay, it's not the case. It's such a waste of resources not to reuse data. And okay, in the era of big data, I don't like this word, but we should reanalyze this data without hypothesis-driven research. And we could also, I mean, with statistical learning nowadays, train algorithms with all this data, regardless of the reason why they have been acquired, and develop technological projects, for instance, decision support system or things like that. So there is a huge value of retrospective data analysis that is, I think, completely underestimated currently in neuroscience research. And all in one, I think that neuroinformatics could be, for an institute like the ICM, probably for many institutes worldwide, a way to be a distinctive aspect in the international competition. And some institutes have played this game very well, and I think we should jump on that. So that's what basically really the vision that we have at that time and the objective we wanted to implement. So how we do that? So we have done that first by creating this Center of Neuroinformatics. I'll come back in a minute to what this means. And the mission of this center is to provide basically the hardware and software infrastructure for scientific computing or data science at large. It should create a common data lake and data catalog, saying that we have a common good, which is all the data that is acquired and analyzed within the ICM. And everybody should be aware of that and should be able, at some point, under certain governance, to access to those data and to use them. And what we do for data, we need to do it also for the tools, for the softwares, for the methods. And we should create a common and shared portfolio of tools. And all in one, this is to promote a culture of sharing data, sharing tools, sharing expertise, sharing ideas. And that, I think, I'm convinced, should increase the quality of our research as an institute. So we created this ICM Centre for Neuroinformatics. It was not, as you understood, to create something on the side and yet another structure within already complex organization. So we adopted this vision of a distributed model. The expertise in data is there. In many of the teams, core facilities, there are many people with background in computer science, in statistics, in engineering, whatever. And you have more and more of them in any neuroscience team. So the expertise is there. What we need is to coordinate this effort. And we need to federate this community as an open community. And that's really the raison d'être of this center. And for that, we had, so thanks to the board, eventually we have a dedicated team and budget for implementing this. So we invest a lot of effort in communication, training, event organization. Because as you said, the people are there, expertise there, might be reinforced in some aspect, of course. But all the thing is, how can we make this community be aware of itself? How can we make people talk to each other more than what they are doing? So we do a lot of monthly meetup, we do internal training session for helping everybody to use the tools that we provide, and we organize also scientific conference, and that's the reason why we are here today. So just to go into a bit more detail, so this Center of Neuroinformatics, basically at the core of it, put in there the same governance, the same coordination, part of the IT department, IT things, and a core facility focused on data management and analytics. So from the left to the right, you have this, what we call scientific IT, which is the people who are setting up the high-performance computing infrastructures, maintaining and deploying the workstation for scientific computing, having the software maintained and up to date. Then there is data management. Data management is the people who are working with the team to ensure that the data from the acquisition to the storage and the analysis follows standardized procedures, that they are correctly annotated, that they are curated, that they are quality controlled. Then we have people that develop software, either for databasing, so structuring this data, indexing the metadata, and also for developing applications, so to automatize a certain number of pipelines and refactor software codes to be deployed on a computer cluster and all that things. And at the end, you have the biostatistics and analysis, of course, for analyzing all this data. So as I said, you have this core, and then you have all the researchers at the ICM with have a very strong domain-specific expertise. And all the game here is to ensure proper coordination between all these actors. So on the one hand, we would like that all the expertise in the teams, in the core facilities, contribute to now a common a portfolio of expertise, tools, methods, and data, and that's using a common and shared infrastructures. And the feedback loop, these people will provide to the team services, which is as little as just consulting on the way you can do your statistical analysis, all the way to end-to-end studies for the teams that have more little knowledge at the moment on all these matters. So one first thing we are working on is to create this common data lake where all data acquired and analyzed at the ICM is put on. So we were working by different domains, and we really benefit from the community tools that is developed within each of these domains. And many of them now has a stage of maturation where we can really use powerful tools and to quickly advance the state of the art. And then we focus more on how we can next integrate all this multimodal data. So just to give you some example, currently we are working on 3 different domains. So in cellular biology, we deploy and implement the Homero tool to make sure, so to help in the data management, and it provides also tools for annotation, for visualization, and to structure that into databases. We do the same thing in clinical research for ECRF using the RedCap community tool, and in neuroimaging we deploy XNAT. And of course, there is the other domain that will work afterwards, but we start with these three domains. And then when we have all these databases and do this data into this common place, we need to structure, to index them in some way, or to build a data warehouse. So here the strategy may not be clear, but what is clear is that we want to have all that into accessible, visible through a unique integrated view. And as I say, what we do for data, we want to do it for also software and methods. So we need to have a portfolio of common software tools. And we started to have an institutional GitLab repo. It's a first thing. We offer support in software engineering, and Gail's show how important is that. And also we automatize a number of processing pipelines. But of course, we are less advanced in this aspect than with for the data lake that is more our current project priority. So our challenges, I think we are still facing a lot of challenge. Of course, I mean, you don't misunderstand me, we are really at the beginning of this endeavor, and this will last for the next 10 to 20 years to reach the objective I have mentioned. So there are still a lot of things underway. I think the main challenges that we have is the change management. I used to say the problem is not, this is not a scientific problem. It's not a technological problem. This is a cultural challenge. Okay, we need to change the way people work, and that is very difficult. And for that, if we want that to work, we need to work really hand in hand with the teams, with the scientists, understand how they are working now, and really find a path where you show them the return on investment. There is a cost of change, but the return on investment should be extremely clear. And that's the way I think you can embark all the people in this endeavor. Of course, the next big thing, you will ask the question of the governance of data lake. So how open will that be? So, of course, in line with our strategy, we'll promote as much as possible an openness of the data, at least already within the ICM, and as much as possible with the outer world. But I think here we should be really clever and smart in the way we implement such open data strategy. We have, on the one hand side, really positive regulatory intensive. We have talked this morning about the FAIRY, about the GDPR, about all this, which tends to push towards in this direction. That is very helpful for us because we can look, I mean, the scientists will move by themselves. They cannot just wait and see. They need to comply with that. So it's a positive incentives. On the other hand, we also should be very clever in the motivation and reward loop. Because what is the point here to invest a lot of effort in data acquisition, in building research projects, which is complicated for a clinician, for instance, that could work in the private sector for much more money. And the reward is clear, it's because you have publication, because you are involved in science, because yeah, there is a reward in the publication. So I think before breaking the motivation, we should first change the reward system. Okay? And I think there is a risk here that sometimes people say, yeah, we should make a very top-down decision, all data are open. I don't think it's a right way, because if you do that, I think in the short term, open data will probably mean no data anymore. So I think we should do that in a smart way, in a way that the interest of every stakeholder is preserved or changed, but for the good. Of course, we are here at the ICM. I focused that quite a lot on purpose because it's our mission here. But we are not alone, of course. And all the purpose of these neuroinformatics things is to be in a position where we can collaborate more effectively internally, but also with external partners. So you might have noticed we are here within a hospital, and that's a big change for such a neuroscience institute to be located within one of the largest hospitals in Europe. And the hospital also having its own strategy for data management and analytics. Currently, I would say that all these actors, and of course, outside the hospital, a lot of other neuroscience institutes where we are willing to and we are collaborating with. My vision is that we have a lot of local initiative at this moment, but no one is really at the stage of maturity where everything can be interoperable at a large scale, even at a European scale. I think it's currently not possible. So I think what we need here is really a lot of discussion and talk with all these institutes and partners to ensure that the choice that we make now will allow the integration and the interoperability at a later time point. Of course, resources is key, and we have emphasized that also this morning. I think such a program could not be run without a clear support from the institution and with institutional money. Then the question is, how do we measure the return on investment? If you have 3 more papers in Nature next year, how much of that is because of the Neuroinformatics program? It could not be done, of course. Very hard to measure. So we need some convince the stakeholder to support this. And of course, the other way is to show the PI that they have strong return on investment on that, and they will contribute to these efforts through their grants, basically. So to conclude, I would say that open science is currently mostly done by individual researchers, individual labs. And what we have seen today is a great illustration of this, and all these movements and communities is extremely lively, and that's for the good. In fewer occasions, open science is an institutional program. We'll have a talk of the Allen Institute in just a few minutes, and of course, Allen Institute is built by construction on the principle of open science. Here, we are in a mixed situation that we have an institution which is quite young, the ICM, and we are trying to use open science to progressively transform the way we are doing research. And I think that's also an interesting aspect of open science, how it can be used to transform current organization into something which is, I think, new, and we allow a better research at the end. And for that, I think it needs really a careful implementation and to ensure the commitment of all the community. Thank you for your attention.